Testing, testing. Testing, 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 testing. Testing, testing. So we'll be beginning in about 5 minutes, guys. Just grab some food and we'll have at it.
To Hacker Dojo, thank you guys for allowing us to be here. They have really good prices on space. I believe it's only $125 a month to come and work here and be a part of this community. Going into a little bit about what the Den does, we run 2 engineering boot camps for software engineers. We've got a Hyperledger developer boot camp as well as a 14-week-long blockchain for developers course, which covers not only the fundamentals of blockchain, but Ethereum development. Long story short, we recently just partnered with UC Irvine, and we're starting to service more universities. So if anyone over here is looking for blockchain education, please come talk to either myself, Jason, Chris in the back over there, or Alok. So without boring you guys any further, let me please introduce our first guest, who's the sponsor, Edgar from the Tech Futures Group.
Hi, my name's Edgar. I'm with Tech Futures Group. This is the director of Tech Futures. I'm the associate director. And we are a nonprofit that offers 100% free business advice to tech companies and startups. It's 100% free. We take no equity. We take no cash. We're able to do this through funding from the federal government and the state of California. All we're measured on is 3 things. It's money we help companies raise through private equity and government grants, jobs, and revenue. And we don't offer any office space. Like I said, we don't take no equity, no cash from our clients we serve. We don't have any programmatic training or limited time you could use our services. All we offer is just great advisors and mentors. So companies that kind of benefit from us the most are companies who are in the beta stage, their product is in prototype. They have a proven business model and their team is built out, and are in a funding round, either with government grants, angel, or seed investment. So the way it works is all you have to do is just apply online, then it gets reviewed internally by our staff, and then it gets sent to a potential advisor or mentor. And around them are specialty advisors who help companies with government grants, intellectual property issues, and financial models. So these are a few areas where our mentors and advisors have specialty in. So you are kind of the center of our universe, and that's our team of experienced advisors that come on board and help you. And these are specialty advisors, patent attorneys, manufacturing, financial modelists, and grant specialists. All right, that is it. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out, and I encourage you to apply. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Edgar. So the next guest I'd like to get onto the stage is Ling. He's the CEO of a company called Decentral. So please, let's get a hand of applause for Ling.
Hey guys. All right. Actually, I'm going to use this. All right. So today I'm going to be talking about the main course of this meetup, which is digital identity. I'll give a quick intro, and I'll start off with a relevant story that you guys might find cool. And then I'll dive into a little bit of the technical concepts of it, and we'll end it with sort of a challenge for you guys. It seems like everyone here comes from like a tech background or like an engineer, and of course other much needed fields. So I'll keep this talk pretty high level, keep it interesting, talk about the real life use cases. So thank you for coming, and hope you enjoy. So I'm going to just give a quick intro. My name's Ling, and I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Decentral. Decentral is a software, full-service software consultant where we help various projects build blockchain and blockchain platforms. So also today, my CFO and our BD guy, we're all in town in San Jose. Usually we're based in San Francisco, so feel free to say hi to one of them anytime. So Decentral, at least given my experience and in the blockchain space, I've realized a lot of things. The space moves fast, and I think part of it is being able to travel and keep up with what the most sought after projects are doing. So currently, we have a large range of clients. We build wallets, we build exchange services, we work with traders, trading desks. We build on, I would say, like top 5 platforms, which you see listed. And all in all, we're focused on blockchain. So this is just an example of a Korean client that we did a project for. We have people with backgrounds in cryptography. One of my other partners, his name is Nagu. He has a PhD from UCLA. He works with cutting edge crypto research, as well as he has an audit experience helping companies like Wells Fargo, E-Trade, audit their Web 2.0 systems before moving into blockchain 2 years ago. My background's similar. I worked in ad tech and also enterprise consulting. I did software audits for IP litigation cases. So when the big companies in Silicon Valley were arguing about source code and spending millions of dollars on this, I was pulled in to look at the code and see exactly where it infringed on a patent if it did. I've also developed secure systems for enterprise clients, so creating a KYC application for large-scale factory management, for creating software that allow big businesses to work with a wide range of third-party manufacturers without needing to fully trust in who they are. A cool demo that I can share later. This was at ETH San Francisco. This was a hackathon. That was, when it happened, it was the largest hackathon in the world, over 1,000 people. And one of our old engineers was part of the winning team, where he was able to make a zero knowledge DAI, which is a stable coin, basically project. So this aspect is pretty cool because a lot of my talk will focus on how new modern cryptography will affect digital identity as well. So digital identity is something that I think will impact everyone here. I was at World Economic Forum, which is a conference. I was in a sleepy mountain ski town of Davos, Switzerland. However, once a year, this entire conference lights up. CEOs, business owners, billionaires, they fly in from all corners of the world to come here to work on deals. And there's obviously a large presence of crypto entrepreneurs and projects there. During this conference, I overheard 2 individuals near the Congress Center, essentially where all the deals are done. I heard 2 of them talk about GDPR and the future of privacy laws as it may impact their companies that they run. What I found interesting is, even though throughout the times we have movies, we have news and other outlets talking about the importance of privacy, hearing it and understanding the emotional importance of it to these people was really good confirmation, because it finally tied this almost abstract concept into something that's for sure on everyone's minds today. So we know that all the business leaders are thinking about user privacy, digital identities in conclusion. So here's something that happened with one of my business partners. So just as we start our trip, we travel, we're out of the country, and we check into our business Airbnb. He ends up getting hacked. That is, his phone service was unresponsive, even though he has an international plan, and the hacker had full control of every single social media account. And to make it worse, he was in the middle of a lot of conversations with important people, and the hacker was not very nice about what he said. So this is not just, I mean, this has happened to me to like a smaller degree too. My CFO Tamara, who's here, actually has witnessed both of these occurrences. So this is a crazy thing that's only been happening because of blockchain and cryptocurrency, because people now can run a profile on you and know exactly what you do, how much you make, or a good estimate, and how exactly they're going to take advantage of you / your data. Right? So obviously this hacker was after his cryptos, which he didn't keep on his device at all. But still, what you guys should think about is just how easy it is for something like this to happen. It's not hard to make a global registry of data where you have essentially all the high net worth individuals that you can web scrape online with a bot and keep an updated CRM, or basically like a contact book of people that you want to target. And if you have access to something as simple as their email, or even if it's one unused account but somehow receives messages about a new trip out of the country, the hackers will know that, hey, this is a really good opportunity, because if something happens, he can't even call his phone company in enough time before I'm able to take over his identity for hopefully as long as I can. So the reason why this will still impact you is because you guys should be aware of how exactly they could potentially take this, and how companies and software is structured to either make that easy or make that really hard. So for example, during this trip, as we were going through various events, you had to submit passport photos. You put that in an email, that is just stuck there forever. And even though a lot of people get lazy, that's incorrect procedures. The best way is you never leave any identifying information on any online account. But then you have to learn about, okay, which encryption software, which messaging platforms do I even use to send people this data? If you're in blockchain, you probably have heard of Signal or even Telegram, where they have like a timed secret message chat, right? So there, you can send sensitive information like your passport or other documents, or your private keys for some deal you're doing. You can pass that along, and you don't have to worry about that record existing. On top of that, it's not just people that live in major cities, but the entire world will benefit from the advancement of digital identity. So in this report, this was published by McKinsey, I just took a graph that shows exactly who's thinking about digital payments and identities the most. Digital identities are used to create things like things that allow you to get loans approved right away, and ways for companies to better protect your data. So overall, imagine how scary that is. So just people passing around your sensitive data back and forth and selling it to the highest bidder. But it's not just the hackers either. It's existing businesses, and there's a lot of businesses that have their entire business model based around this concept. So in ad tech, I know this because I'm pretty close with some of them. In ad tech, there's a company where during your first day, they used to do this, they don't do this anymore, is they say, hey, like, welcome new employee. This is exactly how many times you've opened up Tinder in the last month. And then usually they get shocked and they say, how does that happen? It happens because using just basic fingerprinting techniques or by storing data and accumulating information about people, they could eventually have enough critical mass of data to know that, hey, like this set of devices and users, that represents a unique individual, or at least 99% probability of one. And once they have that, they can measure almost your every move, especially if you keep doing things that prove to them that this entity is a real user. So all this sounds probably pretty scary. So how do you even defend your identity from it being exploited? So first off, you have to understand how this works. Second, there's two pretty basic approaches. Just know the rules of thumb, like never storing your private keys in a messenger or your email. And then there's another extreme, which is to just completely disregard social media, completely opt out of the system, and go full-blown tinfoil mode. I know there's a lot of smart people that do that, but if you understand what makes up, what creates the risks and how you can keep that down to minimum, you just craft something specific to your preferences. So this shows the new class of companies that are coming up in the world. Beyond just the US, people are building companies to create digital identities for people living in other nations. And there's a huge money opportunity. I mean, this was a big theme in World Economic Forum. A big theme was how do we build infrastructure and software? How do we capture the value in nations as they're developing the core infrastructure, instead of operating cash 80% of the time, how do we get them to use a payment app? And there's a huge demand for that because those are some of the most lucrative applications that you can have. It's been like that for about last 5 or 6 years. Every company started as doing some odd company that acquires users, say WeChat or Alibaba, who's a B2B company. But guess what? Many, if not like all of these successful companies eventually created a new division of their companies specialized in payments, or at least specializing in some sort of creating a means for financial transactions. And because of software, they can automate this and make money a small amount, but if they do it at scale, it becomes one of the most lucrative operations any large software company can do. And the root of all this is being able to manage digital identities securely and safely, and if not, how to do it as quickly as you can and hopefully have enough time and money to fix it later. So let's break down identity into 3 core components. This is a different graph. But identity, if you guys want to think about what are the abstract concepts that make up an identity, I would say it's claims, proofs, and attestations. An identity claim is an assertion made by a person or a business. My name is Ling. My birth date is January 1st, 1901. A title, like a vehicle title, is a type of claim as well. It has the added feature of being transferable. And an NFC, a non-fungible token, that exists on the blockchain. For those of you guys that don't know what it is, just think of CryptoKitties or collectibles on the blockchain. But an NFT is actually, you can apply these like understandings and say, based on how they're structured, they're a claim similar to a title, only that it exists on decentralized infrastructure, and you can create as many as you want with whatever terms and conditions that you want. So, so 2 out of 3 proofs. A proof is some form of document that provides evidence for the claim. How proofs work is that they have, a proof is a way for a user to authenticate and authorize in a transaction or do an action on their behalf. Proof comes in all sorts of formats. Usually for individuals, it's their passport, prove that you're a member of a nationality, birth certificate, even a utility bill, proving that you live at a certain address. A receipt of a signed blockchain transaction is how proofs are used in the blockchain world, because knowing that someone owns, someone is able to sign with a private key, either a smart contract or a normal vanilla transaction, you have proof that they own the public address associated. And when you combine these, when you combine these into like a linked data structure, what you can do is you can create things like a Facebook login, but decentralized, like a Gmail login. The reason why they can do that is because you prove 2 things at once. You prove that you are unique enough that you have a very active Facebook profile for the last 4 years, and you prove to this other app that uses your login that you have ownership to that Facebook profile. So you're essentially saying this company, Facebook, is doing most of the heavy lifting for the identity creation process, but because of that, we can just use that and create our own identity. So what I just covered is sort of the current state of things. So what are the main challenges that people face in this current landscape? The first problem is toxic data. So being in charge of a repository with all the user information ends up being a burden to carry. An operator can make money by charging for utility, but then the data liability is to the operator. With companies like Equifax, when companies don't take proper precautions, it's a huge risk at the consumer's loss, right? Now the consumer, you guys, will probably have to get a report from someone that says, hey, by the way, we looked at a big list of data breaches and you're part of it, so please double check for us. So the next issue that we face with this is issues with church or state. So identities are useful, but currently it's only in the context of the border or some sort of geographic divider that's apparent. So when there's a shift, when people don't have the luxury of being born in the US, when they're born into a war-torn country, oftentimes it's just bad luck, but hey, guess what? Because your country we don't like, you no longer exist anymore. And a big sort of saving grace of blockchain is that it wants to provide a solution for these people. But it's not just people in current war situations. This prejudice can apply to basically any level. Even in the US, there's tons of companies that can't even open a bank account that's doing completely legal things. So even though marijuana got legalized recently, even now, just a few years ago, there's companies that make chemical engineering hardware for companies to extract cannabis or even hops, for beer. Those companies are legit engineering companies. They can't even open up a bank account, and they have to stash their savings in a hill in the middle of Pacifica, and then they have to remember where, like, you guys will think is ridiculous, but this is actually true. They will have to stash cash in order as the only working alternative as having a bank account. And then the final point, monopolies. Companies who are in power will tend to just remain in power and make it difficult for everyone else to get in and challenge it. So most of the time it's not that big of an issue because the company is usually doing something right if they at least get themselves in this position. But for people that want to see like, hey, like it's about time we change things, and then they realize they can't because competition is forcibly being stifled, well then you're in a situation where you as the consumer or you guys as the people that just wants to live life, well now it's your burden to carry because they're going to continue their practice of centralizing all their data and staying that way. So emerging markets have all these issues and they have economic woes, but one good thing that people are hoping for is that in using new technology, they can create a new financial system. They don't have to transact in cash, and they have a way to access first world tools like software that can invest for them. But what is the number one thing stopping this from happening is we need a decentralized means to KYC or identify someone. So when companies want to use the latest and greatest technology, whether it's blockchain, whether it's zero-knowledge proofs, whatever, in order for them to do that, they still, at the end of the day, have to say, like, hey, this is a person, and we know with 100% certainty that they're unique. And if it's a financial app and you want to interact with most countries, you're eventually going to have to do like an AML, anti-money laundering check on these people. So this is a challenge that has yet to be solved. And if you guys are, in the business of finding solutions to difficult problems, this is probably the most needed problem to be solved in this generation. I'll get to questions at the end. Comment, yeah. Yeah. Yep. I mean, that's totally relevant, and I know India specifically faces a lot of challenges as well, right? They have issues with people. I used to work with a large team for one of my clients, but they have issues where companies will essentially require a social security number from like any citizen who wants to sign up, and that's just stored as plain text. So the moment any company whatsoever has their data confiscated, well, all its users are at risk. And that actually can happen a lot in the US. It's only recently that like hackers have realized how lucrative something like that would be. And that's sort of what creates this fingerprinting or user attribution business model. But yeah, I'd love to learn more, and thank you for sharing. So back to decentralized KYC, the big promise is that we need to create a way that without being stopped by borders, without being stopped by centralized sort of like these walled gardens, there needs to be a way to identify people. One of the how would a decentralized KYC system work? Well, I like to illustrate this in the form of in a form of a technology goal. So let's say you want to create a lending system, perhaps on the blockchain, and you want a way to create this holy grail of identification, or create this like holy grail digital identity that many companies are thinking that they have that solution. So how would they do it? So the current method is to create an email and password. That's pretty standard, run-of-the-mill, but then it has to store somewhere. It has to store on a central server, so that option's out. You can use something like Facebook or GitHub or Twitter, but then you're at the mercy of those companies functioning correctly, which is quite possible, but again, you don't have full control in case you need to do something specific. The next option is what a few novel messaging apps are. So there's this app called Riot. That's actually what a lot of blockchain companies use internally. You can think of it as like a Slack, but encrypted, and they use SSH keys for every transaction or every message. So what they do is they take the set of all of your social media logins and use that to create a persona on top of your original login, which they verify against your email address and phone number. So in terms of authentication and authorization, that problem is solved there, but we still don't have a solution for how do we create a system that allows for anyone to sign up and have it be used globally, but then people can not worry about their identity stored on a blockchain forever. Because think of it this way. People say like, hey, we're gonna hash the values, we're gonna encrypt the information, so even though it's on the blockchain, it's all good, right? The issue with that is that the moment someone can create a pair, like a matching between your password or private key that signed the transaction, well, guess what? Now your identity and every action that you ever did on the blockchain is on it forever. And as long as someone is distasteful enough to host a web page saying like, hey, this person matches this private key, so if you ever want to like just look up this person, here's how you do it. So a lot of blockchain companies this year and last year realized that, okay, like I guess that is never going to work. Like even though we said it for marketing reasons in our white paper, the truth is we can't store identities on chain, even if they're encrypted. And then we have the super cool technology with zero-knowledge proofs, and there's a whole like class of cryptography that's actually very different, but they all serve a purpose. They all serve a purpose to further protect users' data. Like for example, there's a new protocol called GRIN, Mimblewimble, where for transactions in GRIN, you have they use this technology called CoinJoin. The technical details I probably don't have to go through that much in depth, but almost every year there's an extremely new and novel solution that works enough to create a product, create a blockchain, create something that says, hey people, like use it right now if you want. In terms of what GRIN can provide, it's still too early to tell. But they have a way to allow a blockchain to exist without having the transactions ever existing on chain at all. When you have something like that used for KYC smart contract use case, well, you'll still have the issue of this person, what if this person existed at some other point in time before? If you're creating a decentralized lending system, you can't run the risk of having a person say, hey, this is my first time signing up, but they're just running a script and trying to abuse the lenders as much as they can. So in essence, the solution here is there's always going to be trade-offs to be made. Um, I'm gonna end this with like a cool takeaway. So, in the Bitcoin white paper, the sort of like the Magna Carta of all written content for blockchain, they have a sentence that says every transaction should be done with a new key pair, which means every time you want to send money or do something specific, you have to go into your client or wallet and say, create a completely new wallet identity. And that was a fact created, I don't know, in 2008, 2007. And the reason why is because right now, the technology for forensics and fingerprinting is so much more further along than the technology for encryption and user privacy and protection. There are many companies right now that use this forensic technology to scour the entire blockchain and see, hey, let's use AI machine learning to assemble this graph, this like network that says all these random addresses, because we run algorithms, because we run sending history and behavior data, we know that all of these addresses are most likely the same person. With that, that's what government agencies will use to try to find a link between a person and at least one of those addresses. And when they do, they have like a hot trail where they can trace every single transaction with a different address that's still linked to it. The more times a user uses the same address, the easier this is to do. This process is actually so powerful that even encryption coins like Monero, because of the way that they're laid out, and because Monero doesn't require you to essentially mix the transactions to the maximum amount initially. Like you have the option to say like let's send some money without encrypting it this time. I think like it's a small amount, no one cares, right? But what ends up happening when you do that is even in Monero, you can create this graph that shows, based on all like the pure amounts of raw data, we can actually create patterns and create shortcuts to decrypting exactly what transactions lead to who, and it unlocks what people it removes the protection that people thought already existed because of the data that it created. So, in short, the more information that you put online, the greater the risk. Of course, someone can, hack you and take that, obviously, but also the greater the risk that even if it's non-sensitive data, people can profile you and fingerprint you, and they'll have incentives to do that if you're a wealthy investor that appears to be traveling or put yourself in a exploitable position. But eventually, they're going to tap out that market and move on to like more targets overall. So that means the most important thing you can do is understand how to maintain data and send it to yourselves or send it to others in ways that are encrypted, and just create a habit of doing that. Once you establish that practice, in the case that anyone does compromise your data, you at least know that you're going to be a tough cookie to crack. They're probably going to go after other people that are more careless. And then as engineers, as entrepreneurs, as business people that you guys most likely are, take time away from companies that like to centralize your data. They're monopolies. They're going to want to stay in power anyways. Like, you don't have to worry about them heading out anytime soon. So spend that extra time instead in thinking more about what types of companies do I want to support. What types of companies say it's a non-negotiable item for us to ever compromise the user security for our own benefit. in 2014, I remember there was like news article like every day about the messenger wars, like Facebook, Snapchat, WeChat, all there's like a couple more. Every time it was Snapchat was number one, Facebook was number one. Who came in last every time? It was Telegram, right? But now look, now we see that there's a company that says, at no point in time do we ever compromise the rights of the individual over the rights of our platform and our profit, focuses. Which means that eventually, as people wisen up to the degree that they should, they realize there's only a few clear choices on where I send my data, where I spend my time in, and ultimately which company do I give my resources to. And even though Telegram isn't the most perfect company, they raised $1 billion without too much effort, with good timing and good execution. But in this industry, with how flexible finance is nowadays, people have the option to choose. So no matter what, pick a company that understands your rights and does everything it can to maximize you. Thank you.
All right. So thank you guys for coming out tonight. Once again,
Q&A. All right, let's do it. Question 1, in the blue. Yeah. Yeah. So the question was, how are they tracing Monero? How are they running forensics on supposedly an encrypted blockchain company like Monero? So using their technology, which is ring signatures, right? I believe you go up to 6 in terms of how many tumbles or how many rounds of encryption there are. In the early days, right, there's not many people on the blockchain, and there's not many various addresses that it was sent to. And also in the early days, most people just were like, this blockchain, if it takes off, amazing, but hey, I think I'm just going to be lazy because this blockchain isn't even that big right now. So what happens is that when people send these unencrypted or these untumbled in the ring signature transactions, that you can profile based on essentially where it gets sent out to sort of reverse engineer the algorithm that Monero will choose to say, this is, once this is encrypted, this is the ciphertext, or this is the number mod in that we're going to mix the transaction with. So in short, by having that initial data unencrypted, that's where the greatest risk is. If everyone encrypted to the maximum security of Monero when it first came out, then this issue would still be there, but it wouldn't be as pressing as I would consider it now. Yep, in the black. So the comment was how, I agree with you on this. The comment was that people probably don't want to take the time to figure out how to manage their own private keys. I mean, it's a massive string. If you forget it, you're kind of in trouble. I mean, it's like this with all types of technology, I think, because when email first came out, I think there were plenty of people complaining, like, how do we remember, like, all the mail servers, or how do we even remember, like, how to forward a message to someone? Like, you can't expect people to know what BCC means. So I also didn't know what BCC means for, like, the longest time. So I think just like with a lot of things now, even if you mention to like a grandma or like person who just like sits out in the woods all day, if you talk to them about like how email works, like they're not gonna like ask twice or blink. They'll be like, yeah, like I totally understand how email functions. Everyone I know uses it. I don't, but in short, it just takes time. Yep. In the colorful jacket. Yep. That requires companies to sort of like face enough risk to be motivated to track down the people disrupting it. Like I was, even at a big company like Facebook, I was close friends with someone on the Messenger team, but they had all sorts of like exploits or like schemes ran against them, and the go-to policy was, let's try to prevent it with the least resources use possible, because we gotta release this feature before the next quarter so our stock price doesn't dip. I think that's all relative, because there's tons of people that operate like in the dark web, the shadows, whatever you call it, that are like embezzling like billions of dollars, and they're just doing it and like being shameless about it. So like you have to, if you're a more vigilant organization, you still have to say like, hey, we have to go over these people, and the people doing the high-tech identity hijacking, I mean, we don't like them, but first we gotta solve like the primary issues. I think that at least like how blockchain can like create a demand for these hackers, at the same time it can also create organization or like a way for people who want to like merge their minds and say like, hey, what's like a solution to this problem for like that covers everyone. We have the technology to organize and govern ourselves so that there's resources that are spent to address this issue. Yep. The question was how do we solve the friend being hacked? So, I mean, I don't think this part's being recorded anymore, but in short, like, he just had to literally wait it out, and like in Switzerland and Davos during this time, like every second should be done for like business growth and networking. So he wanted to resolve it, but the truth is, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of like digging up random things, creating the new profiles, getting a new like phone account that he couldn't. He had to just tell people like, hey, sorry, I got hacked, but this deal is still going on, and let's conclude that first. So even, I think it's been a month. Yeah, it's been a month out since the event. I'm personally trying to like organize. We had like a group Airbnb, and I'm still like prodding him on on squaring up on that. So you can tell that he's got a lot of like high priority things that he still needs to do. Yep. Yeah, it's so true. Like there's when yeah, I mean the comment was just having good habits is the smart thing to do. Like this is just a quick perspective, but a lot of the times you're only punished for when like things go wrong, right? So sometimes it just doesn't happen to you. You get away with a lot of stuff until you realize that when you don't, like a decade worth of stuff is gonna like come back to haunt you. I mean, just talking to people that have higher stakes, you can probably hear a few stories. Like growing up, I didn't think this was an issue either. I would like send really angry texts to people when I was angry at them and probably say a bunch of embarrassing stuff. But it wasn't until I heard someone just lose a very large chunk of his career over something that was, I don't know, it was questionable, but it definitely wasn't something that people can sort of like have a witch hunt about. So yeah, just talk to people and maybe hear a few horror stories and take it from there. Awesome. All right, thank you everyone.
Thank you, Ling. So really quickly, right before we end, I'd just like to bring up once again, thank you, Hacker Dojo. If any of you guys are interested in becoming a member over here, please let me know. As well as if any of you guys are existing software engineers trying to break into the blockchain industry, come by and talk to either myself